My project is about revealing my hometown, Oxford and its environs, after dark as the imaginary of the night comes out to play. I am locating my practice in a long tradition of both urban and night photography, first in the tradition of photographers such as William Eggleston, Stephen Shaw, Joel Sternfeld and Mark Power, and second with those who have often concentrated on night photography after dark, such as Ruth Blies Luxemburg, Todd Heido, William Eckersley, Nick Turpin, and Georgiou Pinkasov in his Blackpool illuminations. So what is my intent with this project? My intent has three aspects. First is the expression of the uncanny or the unheimlich, and sometimes the surreal. The uncanny is that feeling we all know of uncertainty and foreboding. Freud located it in the repressed fear of death. And as Nicholas Middleton says, death is the ultimate incarnation of the abstract that is the uncanny. Both Barthes and Sontag saw the photograph as a species of memento mori, and in fact in Camera Lucida, Barthes wrote of how society tends to repress the threatening unruliness of art. Society, he said, is concerned to tame the photograph. The second aspect of my intent is approaching my practice not by privileging any particular object. Stephen Shaw points out that close attention to this can reveal the photographic possibilities of the extraordinary in the ordinary. And as Eudora Welty wrote of Eggleston's images, when you see what the mundane world so openly and multitudinously affirms, there is everything left to say. The third aspect of my intent is how I look at the social relations and power dynamics of the modern urban world. As Thomas Struth has observed of his urban architectural practice, unpolitical practicality doesn't exist. Let me illustrate this with two images of Oxford's Blavatnik School of Government, one of the university's most prestigious, if controversial, new faculties. The image on the left is a classic, almost postcard view. It's what they want you to see. The image on the right is what I choose to see, a rather ungainly blob dropped into a landscape of CCTV cameras, fencing and security patrols. Both images are fair representations, but in my view only the one on the right is authentically being there. Any project like this has challenges. What are mine? First, there is the technical challenge of how to create and see space. The uncanniness of the night can wither in close confinement, and we can only apprehend a larger meaning if an image is contextualized. I began, not very successfully, with a 50mm lens. I have now changed to a 35mm lens, and I am forcing myself to pause and step back more and more. A second challenge is framing, part technical, part aesthetic. Edges create relationships, both visual and contextual. Framing is one of John Sarkowski's 5 key photographic elements, because, he says, the central act of photography, the act of choosing and eliminating, forces a concentration on the picture edge and on the shapes that are created by it. Here, for example, is a closer framing on the left and a more open framing on the right, both deliberate. I don't think either is particularly successful. I need to make more use of verticals such as streetlights to divide or enclose the frame. And on the right, I need to take more care over the illusion of depth in an open frame, one that allows the unheimlich to wander in. Another challenge is the photograph's essential ambiguity, the tension between authentication and representation, between the mental level of what the photographer saw, what the viewer sees, and what the image actually depicts. Nothing about vision is as straightforward as we think. This matters because things can be changed, beautified, or objectified simply by being photographed. It is neatly phrased in a remark attributed to Jeff Wall. There are two myths about photography, the myth that it tells the truth and the myth that it doesn't. Here, for example, is a suburban shop on the left and a canal boat on the right. They do have their own beauty, of course, but have I overdone it? This is a very fine line to maintain. How we look leads on to another challenge, the nature of the gaze and the social power dynamics it reveals. I doubt I can do better than to quote Richard Misrach here. Being a white male American artist, he said, affects or skews my perspective on everything I do from the outset. The best I can do is try to keep this self-consciousness at the forefront while I work, and not assume that the truths I discover are objective or universal. In this image, for example, am I gazing on deprivation from the privileged position of a photographer and likely beautifying it too? Quite possibly. The challenge of ethics flows naturally from this. As a photographer, I can choose when I press the shutter, but my subjects can't. I am also aware that photography at night can easily shade into voyeurism, and that any photography in urban spaces raises issues of privacy, of not antagonizing or upsetting passers-by, and of not stereotyping those from different cultures or ethnicities. Ethics come sharply into focus when dealing with what any urban photographer will encounter: homelessness. My answer is simple. I will follow in the footsteps of practitioners like Martha Rosler and Leif Clayson, who concentrate on the traces of homelessness, not the thing itself. Rosler describes, correctly, the victimization by someone else's camera of helpless persons. So, here on the left is an image by Clayson, and on the right is my own approach to the trace of something. Mine is not a great image, but I'm making a point. And besides, I agree with Susan Sontag that concerned photography has, in her words, done at least as much to deaden conscience as to arouse it. So what of the audience and output media for my project? To begin with, it is important to bear in mind that I have no control over how a viewer may react to my work. Susie Linfield points out that photographs evoke unexpected, unruly responses. A wonderfully incongruous tendency, she says, to show that life has its own purposes. Even so, I am locating my practice in a long tradition whose primary expression is the photography book. Thus, a book called Hometown Nights is and will remain my primary focus. I have not yet settled on what kind of book, though. Books are a movable feast and can be quite unconventional. The image on the right here, for example, is from the practice of Dianita Singh. A book can be a box, a frame, or a concertina containing cards, not pages, to be put on a table or hung on a wall, for example. Here, Singh is offering what she calls the Poti box with that in mind. There is currently a burgeoning of online initiatives to help us all through lockdown. This, for example, is a page from the current website of Modern Art Oxford, offering online exhibitions and virtual tours, among other things. It's exciting, and I certainly need to be aware of all this. Finally, I do not see my photography as a chore or a laborious task. It is important not to lose contact with enjoyment and creativity among the thickets of criticality. Whether one agrees or not, I rather warm to a remark by Joel Sternfeld. A photograph, he says, is a very simple utterance. It may generate a little bit of thought, but frankly, it's not capable of complex thought. It's that reciprocal vision thing again. There is just the image. We look at it and it looks at us, but only we do the thinking.